So we are back. This is episode 3 of Insatiable Angler. And today we have a guest. We're going to change gears here a little bit. It's the polarizing, the always interesting, the electrifying Ben Milliken.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. That's quite the introduction.
Hey, it is what it is. There was just a little podcast where your name was brought up.
Oh yeah.
which we can talk about that. But so we got to meet down at the Slaunchmaster Classic last year.
Yes, sir.
That's 2021, so now it's 2 years ago. But the inaugural Slaunchmaster Classic down on Truman Lake. Got to shoot the breeze, had a great time talking. And then, periodically we've kind of kept in touch through Instagram. But I want to let people know that are maybe thinking about doing, the YouTube thing, thinking about kind of taking that path. A lot of people don't realize the work that goes into it and a lot of the planning and preparation. So we'll kind of talk about that because I think it's important for people to understand and know what they're biting off when they look at that route. So we'll go ahead all the way back to the beginning. I guess we can talk about, a lot of people know you played baseball, but how did you get into bass fishing itself? How did the whole thing work out?
So I fished growing up like crazy as much as possible from a very young age, but most of that was fishing with my dad. And that was multi-species stuff for the most part. We fished for bass, of course, too, but we always would go out. And Nebraska actually isn't very good for bass fishing. And so we have like walleye and panfish, stuff like that. So spent a lot of time growing up doing that. But then when I went to college, my first year at University of Nebraska, Lincoln, my buddy, who I kind of met through like an online fishing forum, was like, hey, I started a fishing club here. You should come to the meeting and come check it out. So I went and checked it out. And that was obviously the start of college bass fishing. So that's what really got me into tournament fishing, was right when I was a freshman in college is when I got into tournament bass fishing. Actually, I fished a random one in high school too, but we didn't really know what we were doing and it didn't go so well. But got into the college stuff a little bit. And then after that first year, I decided I want to play baseball. Ended up getting a baseball scholarship after the next summer. And so I went and did that for a couple of years and couldn't really focus on tournament fishing at that point. But then switched back after a year and a half, 2 years at that junior college playing baseball, went to another 4-year university, started a fishing club there. And at the same time, I was, even while I was playing baseball, I was actually fishing a lot of local tournaments and stuff too. And so I pretty much got ate up with it right about that time, probably, it's 10 years ago now, 12 years ago now. I started fishing all these local tournaments and fishing literally as many as I could afford to fish. And that's what started my love for it.
And then you were kind of doing the YouTube thing on the side, I'd say before the YouTube thing kind of kicked off, right? Because I mean, I'd still say we're still, I don't think we're past like the peak. I think we're definitely getting close to peak though. It's getting pretty wild.
Oh yeah. I might beg to differ. I think we're well past. I think it's about impossible to get into at this point with the fishing industry. Yeah.
All right. I know a lot of the pros are starting to do it now, so I know it's taking some of the steam away from guys that are trying to actually come up and do it on that side. But
yeah, for sure.
So do you remember, I asked Garrett this and we talked about it, and then I asked Matt Becker this. Do you remember your first bass that you ever caught?
I don't think I remember my first one I ever caught, but I definitely remember the difference when growing up, I finally started, my dad would always, he's like the same fisherman now as he was 30 years ago. He hasn't gotten any better at fishing or tried any different techniques, I don't think, since then. But he always threw buzz baits, and that's like one of the 3 lures he still throws like religiously. He'll go to the pond, stand on the bank and throw a buzz bait. Doesn't matter what time of day or what pond or what lake he's at. And he'll throw it and throw it and throw it. And some days he'll obviously, catch them really good. And some days he won't get a bite. Most days he won't get a bite. But I just remember watching him, and I'm just like seeing these bass blow up on his buzz bait. And I'm just like, my mind's blown. And I have nothing to throw that could even, I'm got a Zebco 33 and I'm 5 years old, But I finally got some poppers, some little pop R's that I could throw in that little spin cast combo.
The old Rebel poppers.
Yeah, man, I was an assassin with that thing. And just seeing that top water blow up got me so much more curious and bass fishing, and really probably would have got a lot more into it if we didn't spend so much time messing around with walleye and panfish and stuff like that. And if we had better fisheries around here too, I think my bass fishing career would have taken off a lot quicker.
And if you probably weren't playing baseball, right? Like I remember
Yes,
when Adrian college kicked off, I was actually in college and I was playing golf in school. And we were like, dude, a bass team, like who's fishing for bass in college? And it's Adrian.
Right.
Now, obviously, one of the number one universities in the nation. But they're
Adrian's had a great run.
Yeah, and they're 40 minutes off the road. So it's you wouldn't expect this area of the country to have a bass team, let alone
of course
one of the best in the country. But
of course, that's incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. So I guess you came out of school, and I think you talked about it in one of your YouTube videos. You started fishing tournaments while you were working full time, right? After graduating.
Yep.
How did that transition to YouTube and then full-time YouTube happen?
Yeah, so I had a full-time 8 to 5 type job that I got with my degree from college, and basically I was fishing as many tournaments as possible and got to the same realization that it seems like everyone's just hopping in opens in the coasters and everything these days like it's nothing, which is kind of crazy to me, but I never really could wrap my head and my life situation around that to where I could take off 10 weeks a year from work. So I'd always had dreams to be a pro tournament fisherman. But I kept fishing all these local tournaments, on the weekends, and 1-day tournaments, some 2-day tournaments, state tournaments, some regional stuff as well. But just the realization was that it was just going to be impossible to make the jump to being able to travel and take that much time off work. So I ended up meeting Andrew Flair at a tournament, which is kind of funny because I don't think he's fished one since. That was like 7-8 years ago. No, it wasn't. 6 years ago, maybe.
Well, for a while, those guys were fishing tournaments, right? Like Rob and those guys were fishing tournaments.
Yeah, a little bit, definitely.
Yeah, on the channel they had videos of them going to tournaments for a little bit, and then they kind of fell off.
You're right. It was like a huge coincidence that Flair was at this Nebraska state tournament, and I don't even know why we got introduced, other than I was one of the only ones posting on Facebook and Instagram even, and I don't know. But so I linked up with him, and he basically wanted to go fish with me because I had done well in the tournament. He's like, "You younger dude, you get it," and I was like, "Yeah, for sure, man." And he's from Omaha. And so I took him out a few times, and I'm like, what the hell is this guy doing with the chest camera on the back of my boat and talking to the camera and filming? He's got a camera, like a little Yo Tech in the back going. He's got his chest camera, and I'm like, we went out and just smashed fish the first few times I took him. And he started telling me a little bit about this. And I was like, I'd watched fishing videos on YouTube, but I didn't realize that it was a thing people were consistently posting. And so I started looking at some of the stuff he's posted and the growth of everything that him and a couple of his friends had gotten, like John B. And I don't think Rob had even done anything at that point until he paid them to come down and start the squad or whatever. But that's
a whole nother deal. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But
yeah. So we've planned a trip we actually went on where we actually were in the car for a while, talked about the YouTube thing, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna try it, see what works with it, see what doesn't. And so I started posting like once every week, once every 2 weeks. And then in the spring, once it came around, I started posting a couple times a week, and then maybe 2 or 3 times a week. And then it got to the point, it's crazy that it got to this point, but in like 3 or 4 months, I was starting to make a decent amount of money to the point where I thought that I could potentially quit and make close to as much money as I was in my full-time job, which wasn't very much money. And I didn't like my job. And so I was like, all right, I'm just going to do it. And then everything that's my statistics have shown that if I'm posting more frequently, then it's going to keep getting more views and keep growing faster. And that's exactly what happened once I quit and started the YouTube thing full-time, started posting 5, 6, 7 times a week. And it took off from there.
Yeah. I think when we met 2 years ago at the Slaunchmaster Classic, I think you were under 200,000 subscribers. I think you were at like 150, and now you're heading towards 500,000. But
yeah, hopefully. We just went over 400 recently. It was pretty crazy, man.
Yeah. So you made the transition to YouTube. You decided to do it full time. I guess for people that are thinking about trying to go down the same path? What's a piece of advice you'd give to someone trying to come up? Like, what would be a word of advice or a word of wisdom that you would have to bestow upon them?
Man, that's tough because, like I said, I think that it is well past its peak. But I think that's maybe the advice that I would give them is to understand that just because you see someone else that's come up and you see the Guggen squad that's gotten super, super mega rich off of just making videos and not necessarily being experts at fishing, but being more of an entertainment factor on the YouTube platform. Just because you've seen that doesn't mean it's going to happen again. And with YouTube and fishing, it's gotten so saturated that it's hard to get any growth and really stand out because everyone has a channel now, and you're competing against another 50 to 100 pro fishermen every single year that are starting their channels as well. So I think what people need to understand is there's other platforms and other ways to make money, and that they don't need to put all their eggs into the one YouTube basket. Like I mean, Facebook has a great video platform. TikTok, I know, is kind of magical fairy dust right now that no one really knows what to do with or what the views and impressions and everything mean as far as sales and how that transitions.
Yep.
But there will be more video platforms coming. But the biggest thing is just to get started with it and get comfortable in front of the camera and start creating, because you never know. I mean, whatever that people are good at and whatever makes them unique might really catch on with people. And maybe it's not a video content creator that you're best at. Maybe you realize that you're really good at blogging after posting a few things, or you're really good at posting pictures on Instagram and stuff like that. Or you realize you want to be a rep or some type of marketing person in the fishing industry. That's just as great too. The industry is very, very vast, but as soon as you start making content and creating for yourself, you can kind of get your foot in the door with a lot of different opportunities.
Agreed. 100% agreed. It's really good advice. So then kind of going from that, I ask this question to everybody. If Ben Milliken, and obviously with the algorithm shift, this may ring a little bit true to you as well. If you lost it all and had to start back over again, what would be your process? How do you think you would go about that? What would be the steps Ben would take to rebuild Milliken Fishing?
As far as on YouTube or on everything?
Everything. What would be your strategy be today if you lost everything, had to start back over? What do you think you would do?
I'd probably do it pretty similarly. Honestly, I would start. I would do as much research on the type of videos that people like to watch. I'd figure out what I was good at and what I don't know, what made me unique in my part of the country. I mean, shit, there's a lot of guys making very successful livings just by going down to local spillways and catching carp and catfish with night crawlers, which is crazy, and anyone can do that. And so, I mean, I think the tournament side of things still gives people an edge and gives me an edge, especially because I can go and show the exact baits and talk my way through it. And a lot of the pros aren't, like, still refuse to do that. They're not talking about anything they're actually doing. But yeah, I would still do the same thing. I'd post as much content as possible and as consistently as possible. I know you're trying to relate that to anyone that's watching and trying to start their own brand or their own platform, but I don't, like I said, it's extremely tough, and you just got to be yourself and figure out what works best for you. And you got to have a hell of a support system too, especially at home. Everything has to be in order for you to just make this jump and go do that. And luckily, with my wife actually was done with school and started her full-time job right when I quit my job. So that added a ton of stability, which made me be able to do this.
And I think the big thing people don't understand either is, like, YouTube isn't the only source of income that a lot of these people that are doing this actually have, right? Like there's affiliate setups, there's branding, there's merch, there's a whole bunch of different items that go into this. It's not just creating videos and just letting it ride and making your money off AdSense. It doesn't work that way 100% of the time.
Yeah, totally. That's a huge part of it. And that's probably would be the biggest thing if I was starting it over. For anyone that wants to start their own brand, is get involved in as many different income streams as possible and as many different revenue streams, because that's what I was doing from the start. And just having that little extra Amazon link money coming in or working with company X for $150 a month, whatever, tiny little deals really added up and allowed me to do it from the start too.
Yeah, I think that's a key that a lot of guys don't talk about. And I think one of the things, like especially up here, it's something I've been talking about. I'm probably going to piss a lot of people off this year because I'm going to break down areas of like Lake Erie, Lake St. Clair that guys, it's probably going to ruffle some feathers, but I think at the same point in time, if the idea is to grow the sport and the idea is to get more people into fishing, I think that it's a kind of a touchy subject, right? Because you want to show people how to go about catching fish or patterns you figure out or things you figure out as well when you're breaking down water. But I think it gets tough when you're trying to also not violate the tournament community, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So how do you go about doing that? Because I know you've had some videos that, I mean, you guys have whacked them pretty good, and you've shown some of the baits. But as far as like breaking down bodies of water or showing spots or giving community holes away, how do you select how you go about doing that?
It's tough. It's really tricky. That's the biggest thing with what I've done, especially because when I give something away, it's not like I'm on Lake Erie where there's 37 miles behind me of open water. Pretty much just understand that if I fish somewhere and it's on video, then I'm never probably gonna be able to fish and do well there again in a tournament, which is sad to say, especially because we're fishing for $600 in a lot of these local tournaments, and I can go win every single tournament there if I didn't film it. But people see your boat on a spot, whatever. Biggest thing for me has been I try to hide stuff, especially with ice fishing season now, because any Timmy can go out there and walk exactly to the spot you're on and see the exact holes that you just drilled and fish that spot. We've blown out so many lakes like that. I'm super careful with ice fishing stuff. A lot of videos I'll film an intro at a different lake, or I'll film it inside the hut. Something like that to where people can't see anything or else that spot will be wrecked. As far as tournaments goes, I'm pretty much this year was just like, well, if I fish a tournament here, this spot's never going to be fished again, and I'm just going to have to get on side scan and pan optics and for the next tournament and go find new fish. It worked out well this year.
Yeah, I think part of that too is, I don't know. I think part of it is guys get really pissed off when you show spots, right? Like, but at the end of the day, I think there's so much seasonality and the patterns change so much that yes, there may be a area you find fish, but they may not be there the next day even. Like, I think that's what a lot of people don't think about, is that just because you showed a spot doesn't mean that they're going to go there and whack them. You may have been on the right spot in the right conditions on the right day, found exactly what bait they're on, crushed them, and then you may not be able to replicate that pattern again for another year or two.
100%. Yeah. I mean, you can be crafty about it too. I mean, I feel like like you said, fish are always constantly changing. And I mean, I had several tournaments this year where I'd go film a pre-fishing video and I would purposely bait people to go fish other spots by catching 3 or 4 there and be like, oh, it's a good spot, I'm going to fish this in the tournament. And I would just go find something else somewhere else. So, I mean, you got to be crafty.
So do you get people following you to spots now on tournaments and derbies and stuff?
Yeah, we've had people that aren't in the tournament that are just fishing other tournament series or whatever come and follow us quite a bit.
That's pretty shitty, but
yeah, I guess it's fun. Super fun, I guess.
So Slaunchmaster Classic, where did the idea come from, and how? I mean, we haven't talked about like after the event the success you had from that, but let's kind of talk about that. Like, how did you even think about putting something like that together?
Yeah, that was a blast. I love tournament fishing to its roots, and we don't have a lot of big tournaments around here. We have like none around here unless you travel 5+ hours away. And so I wanted something that we could have just a straight up jackpot tournament. I wanted as many boats as we could feasibly manage to have in the tournament. And then I wanted to pay back 100%. That's another big thing that's missing, I think, from a lot of the tournament series, especially at the top levels, is not really paying back well or not really understanding where a lot of that money comes from. And so I just did straight up 100% of the entry fees are going back to the top 5 teams, which wasn't a great number of teams paid out. We only paid out 5 for 200 boats, but but the first place was 10 grand on a $100 entry fee tournament. So we're proud of that. And it took a lot of planning. I had a ton of help from my family and friends putting it together the night before and everything. But had a blast. Couldn't believe we got 200 boats on Truman Lake in Missouri. And
Dude, I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that ramp line. Like that was.
Man, yeah, that was absurd. That and we're gonna do more of these, and we plan to do. When I put this together, I was already planning a second one to do, and do a couple a year. I wanted to do 2 a year, but the problem was COVID came, and then this fall everything got so backed up because tournaments all got moved, and we couldn't get a date that we wanted this fall, and so now we're back doing it again this April and May. We're going to do another one. I don't know if it's going to be end of April, start of May, sometime in that time period. So we're excited to do it again and hopefully have some bigger payouts and better prizes than last time and better accommodations. And it'll be put on a little bit better. I think we'll do a pre-tournament meeting the night before. I'm positive we'll do it the night before. That way we can.
Where do you think that's going to go?
We're going to do it at Truman again this spring. We had some Truman is on fire that time of year. Especially this last couple of years, it's put out the biggest bags in Missouri. But I mean, I think we'll have, if we get 200 boats again, we'll probably have 20 plus bags over 20 pounds. It'll be a super fun tournament. It could have more than that. It could take 25, 26 pounds to win.
And Truman's kind of a sneak hole, right? Because everybody comes to Lake of the Ozarks, and then Truman's the flood control lake. So the water levels fluctuate so much that a lot of guys say it's tough to fish, but there's big fish in that lake.
Oh yeah, definitely. Ozarks actually didn't even fish that well this last year either. So Truman fished substantially better. We just kind of that Slaunchmaster Classic. I mean, you saw 22-7 or something won the tournament, but tough fishing. And we were just a little bit behind the bite, and it gets tough that time of year. But we just barely missed it.
I think Brad and those guys figured out like a really specific bite in really specific, like the pattern and the bait was pretty dialed for those guys.
Yeah, for sure. They were in specific areas where it had just every tournament had been getting one, and it had the perfect water clarity, which it was, I don't know. He's a wizard on that lake. So
yeah,
that's all I know.
All right. So we'll go back here to this question. What's a lesson that you've learned along the way that doesn't get talked about a lot? Like what's a low key kind of deal that you figured out along the way?
As far as what? YouTube?
Like a lesson, not even about YouTube, just overall about the whole fishing industry, about your experience. If you were to pass along some knowledge, like some back pocket knowledge, what would it be to somebody just like overall, like right off the top of your head, what would it be?
That's tough. I guess the biggest thing that sticks out to me is people want to get started in YouTube and in the fishing industry. And it was extremely hard for me to get started in the industry or even pursue a career in the industry until I made some connections. I don't think people realize how much networking matters within the fishing industry because fishing is extremely broad. It's extremely giant as an industry, but it's also very, very small. Everybody does know everybody. And so I think the biggest thing for me was not just working with brands or working with sponsors or trying to get sponsorships or logos on my jersey or whatever, but actually getting to know those people and really getting behind some good brands. And then I think the biggest thing people can do is get out to some of these trade shows because a lot of them are free, like ICAST, which I think they'll exist in the future post-COVID, I hope. And the Classic Expo and Red Crest, I don't know what that's going to be like, but get to some of these shows that are free and start meeting some people at these companies and getting your name out there. But that's the best way to get anywhere in this industry is to start networking. And then on top of that, treat everyone with respect. There's been a lot of bridges burned by a lot of people that are jumping from company to company or disrespecting other companies. And so treating people inside the industry with respect goes a long ways because word gets around so quickly.
Yeah, and I think you kind of hit one of the things there that a lot of people have noticed is that, you know, and Matt kind of talked about it, is that a lot of these kids are willing to just throw a logo on their jersey and take 10%, but at the same point in time, there's no end goal in sight, right? Like they're not working with the company to build loyalty to get to a point where, hey, maybe if I make the leap in my career or I get a break that maybe we work something out and there's a side income stream or free equipment or something that gets an equipment budget, whatever it is that never gets. And I don't think people are going into this at some time I don't think they're going into it with a plan. Like there's no laid out, hey, here's where I want to get to, and then work my way backwards and figure out what I have to do to get there, and then stick to that plan. I don't think that's happening.
Of course. So, no, you're absolutely right. Yep.
All right. So 10-question lightning round.
Let's do it.
All right. Favorite lake?
Ooh. I'm slowing up your lightning round already. Favorite lake? Probably there's Lake X in South Dakota.
All right. Fair enough. Smallmouth, largemouth, or spotted bass?
All of them. No, smallies if I have to choose.
All right. Do you have a favorite bait?
I have several favorite baits.
What would be the one that's always tied on your boat? Always.
A jig's always tied on, but my favorite bait's probably a 6 cents flat 75.
Okay. It's a pretty solid bait too.
Yeah.
Favorite non-electronics piece of equipment that you have for fishing?
Ooh, that's tough. Is a trolling motor with spot lock considered electronics?
You know, that counts. It's equipment, but it's just not part of your electronics.
I like it.
All right. Favorite on the water snack?
Probably jerky.
Is that pre-workout gym Ben, or is that post-workout gym Ben?
Both, but definitely post.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Yes.
Biggest largemouth and biggest smallmouth?
Biggest largemouth was 8 pounds, 12 ounces. Caught it last year at Choke Canyon in Texas. Biggest smallmouth was at Lake X, 6 pounds, 4 ounces.
All right.
Yep.
Are you a shallow guy or offshore?
Offshore, probably the most.
Okay. Spinnerbait or chatterbait?
Chatterbait.
What's been the moment thus far in your career that's been your favorite?
As far as YouTube or as far as tournament fishing?
Anything. What's one thing that stands out to you thus far in your career that's you're like, dude, like this is pretty amazing?
Fishing with Mike Iaconelli for a week.
I figured that was gonna come out. I figured you
were
it was pretty dope to be able to.
Yeah, it was incredible. I didn't even need to film anything for that. I was just in awe the entire time.
Yeah, and what's crazy about those those fishing deals is the discussions you have and the things you learn just from being around those people.
Totally.
Like, proximity is huge.
Definitely, man.
What are you most looking forward to in 2021?
Just traveling, new places, and getting one thing I'm really excited for is getting back down to Texas. That's all I can think about right now, and doing some fishing there in the winter because I am already over ice fishing. I've done it for like 5 days total so far this year.
Yeah, it's you were down there with what the 6 Cents guys, right? It was like you and that's where you caught your big, wasn't it?
It was. That was actually a separate trip. I was down there with Ronnie Kelly. He's with 6 Cents too. I was down there with him a separate time. I went down like 5 times last winter. Okay. Usually I make it that much, but this year I just haven't got down there yet. I'm excited for that.
All right. And then it pretty much wraps up our 10-question round, but
all right.
Where can people come follow you on social media?
Milliken Fishing, everything. All of it.
Milliken Fishing the world.
You got it.
I appreciate it, man. We got to get you up here on these Great Lakes later on this year.
I would love to. I have a trip planned with a special celebrity guest at St. Clair in
April. I think I know who it is, but we won't talk about it yet. I'll let you
that
whole deal.
All right. Sounds good.
But yeah, when you come up, we'll definitely have to get together. I guess the question is, are there going to be any tournaments that you fish, like bigger tournaments or BFLs, anything, now that you're kind of gotten away from, like, you got into the tournament side and you kind of stepped away, and now that you're fishing full time, do you plan to jump into any of these like Toyota Series events or anything?
Yeah, so it's funny. It's kind of the direction it's taken me now that I kind of want to start fishing some of these bigger tournaments and pursue that route a little bit, but I'm not sure yet. I wanted to fish the Opens. Problem with the Opens is I'm not crazy about the schedule as far as these ones down here are. The Central Division is so far from me, and that's the closest one. And I also realized that I'm just, thinking end goals. You don't make a lot of money fishing the opens and stuff like that, which it's not all about that, but it's basically you're fishing the opens to try to qualify for the Elite Series. And the best way to do that is to fish all 9 opens. And I don't really have that many weeks this year to travel. So I guess short answer for the long answer, I'm going to fish some bigger tournaments this year. I just don't know what yet.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah, 100%, man. It's going to be a good one. I'm excited for this year.
Yeah, it's going to be really good. So, like I said, I'll link everybody's your information down below so everybody can come visit, follow, subscribe that isn't already subscribed, and kind of go from there. And we'll follow along this season. Hopefully, see you on a couple big derbies, and hopefully we can make it down for the Slaunchmaster Classic again. It was a great time. So
I plan to see you there. I hope so. We'll get it announced here in a couple months.
All right, we'll definitely have that.
All right, man.
Everybody know about that too. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Take it easy, dude.
You too.